Conversations on Dance is proud to have Yumiko as a continued partner in 2021. Yumiko is a company inspired by beauty and standards. As a leader in the dancewear industry, they take great pride in their impact as a socially and environmentally conscious brand. This month, Yumiko introduced 6 new mesh tones available for all personalized pieces. And as a summer celebration, Yumiko is offering a special in-store discount to our New York City listeners. Show that you are subscribed to Conversations on Dance at checkout to receive a 10% discount on your in-store purchase. Visit yumiko.com for store hours, and be sure to follow along on Instagram at Yumiko to stay up to date.
I'm Rebecca King Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Sean Breeden, and you're listening to Conversations on Dance. Today on Conversations on Dance, we are joined by Esteban Hernandez, principal dancer with the San Francisco Ballet. Esteban talks to us about training with his father and siblings, moving abroad at a young age to study ballet, and how he found his dream company in San Francisco Ballet. Esteban will be making his return to the stage on August 13th and 14th at the Frost Amphitheater for Stanford University's Stanford Live series. Tickets are available at live.stanford.edu or in the link in our episode description. Esteban, thank you so much for joining us today. A week before you're about to get back on stage, so it must be a pretty exciting time for you. But we want to talk a little bit about your history in ballet, like your family history. It's really an interesting story, a really inspiring origin story for why you're a dancer. So tell us a little bit about your family's relationship and history with ballet.
Well, first, like I said, thank you for having me. It's so exciting to be able to share this with both of you. I come from a very big family. I am one of 11 siblings, and both of my parents were dancers. My father danced. He started dancing when he was 16, so he was older. It was a very dramatic story because his parents didn't necessarily support the idea of him being a dancer. So he kind of ran away from home to pursue his dream. He is originally from Monterrey in the north of Mexico, and he got on a bus and made it to Mexico City to try to find some training, which he did. He studied there for a little bit and came into contact with several prominent dance figures at the time, one of them being Rudolf Nureyev. And Nureyev suggested that he try his luck in New York. And, my father at the time was like, New York seemed like such a far away dream. But he did. Anyways, he ended up at Harkness in New York, and eventually he danced at Alvin Ailey and Dance Theater of Harlem. So he did, he kind of danced in several places. Fast forward several years, and 11 children later.
That's wild.
Yeah. He had kind of left the dance world behind. And, it got to a point where, there wasn't 11 of us yet. I think there were maybe 8
Only
or 9 of
8,
us at the time. And we were all homeschooled. It's difficult to afford education for 11 children. And my parents have always believed that there are other ways of doing things, like other than like the standard kind of way of doing things. So they explored the idea of homeschooling, which was really, for me, it's all I ever knew. So to me, it felt very natural, very normal. We had a tutor that used to come teach us in the mornings, like our schoolwork and all of those things. And then as a way to kind of like, as a way of like physical education, that's where dance first came into the picture. It came into the picture as this way of like getting our energy out.
Was this in Mexico now? So your dad was in New York, and then did he come back
Yes.
to Mexico? Okay.
Yes, this was, sorry, I guess I didn't clarify. This was in my hometown, in Guadalajara, in Mexico. And he started teaching my older siblings in the backyard of our house, very much resembling what this last year kind of resembled.
That's true.
Yeah, he built this bar in our patio where we used to like do laundry. He built a bar, and we used to put down these thin sheets of wood, and that's where my older siblings first started dancing. One of my brothers, Isaac, who is now a principal dancer at the English National Ballet, he started taking it more seriously than the rest of my siblings. He felt like I don't know. I think he liked something about it in a way that my other siblings did not. Dance is not for everyone to pursue, and it's a very demanding art form. So it requires a lot of work, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of effort. And many of my older siblings were like, well, you know what, I'm gonna do other things, and which was great for them. But my brother Isaac, he carried on training, and at the time I was too young to start dancing.
How much older is he than you? Because I went to the rock school with Isaac, so I remember his like super talented, and I remember hearing like he has this younger brother who's really good too. So how old? What's your age difference?
He's 4 years older than me, so it's not such a big difference. But he started dancing when he was 8. So I was 4 years old at the time. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So
it's a little young to start.
Yeah, I think so. But he trained with my dad for about 4 years. So throughout those 4 years that he was training with my dad in our backyard, I was watching him. I was watching them. And after when I turned 7, I actually asked my dad whether he would want to teach me. And my dad, I remember it was a really clear conversation that we had, because I think it kind of took him by surprise, because up until that point, none of my siblings had asked him to teach them. It had been this kind of thing that it was like, okay, well, it's here. If you want, you can, but it's your choice. But I really wanted to learn. I think from like watching my brother and watching them work, and I loved the music. I loved like the connection between the movement and the music. So I asked him to teach me, and he talked to me, and he said, what you're asking me to do, you're saying that you want to be a professional ballet dancer. You're 7 years old. Are you sure that this is what you want? So he explained to me, that it's a very difficult profession. It's hard to make it. It's a lot of sacrifices. He said, at some point you're probably going to have to leave home to find more opportunities, and to find different teachers and different kind of training. He said, are you sure you want this? And I didn't even think about it. I just said, yeah, of course I do.
It's kind of funny that your dad, as someone who literally ran away from home to get training, would be surprised that his own son would have similar ambitions and passion for ballet. I think it's kind of sweet.
Yeah. I mean, I think I also, looking back at it, I really appreciated him having that conversation with me, because I think like it, in a way, kind of gave me sort of like realistic expectations about it, knowing that it was going to be extremely difficult, that in some ways my childhood would be different from most kids' childhoods. So I think I really appreciated that, and I really still appreciate knowing what I was getting into.
Yeah, that was one thing we wanted to ask you because, like we grew up with parents who didn't know anything about dance. So it was kind of like this uncharted territory for them. They were like, what does this mean? You want to be a ballet dancer, So one of the things we wanted to know from you was like how your dad helped you and led you. And it seems to me that this is probably just one example of how he kind of set your expectations for what it was going to be. He warned you it would be difficult. He warned you of these sorts of things. So how do you feel that really like set you up for success and allowed you to maybe experience leading into becoming a principal dancer in a different way than someone who, say, hadn't had that fatherly advice?
Yeah, well, I think it was also helpful for me to have my brother ahead of me. I think for him, it was more of this like uncharted territory because my parents had been outside of the dance world for so long that it was kind of difficult to figure out what the possibilities would be. So for me, it was really helpful to have my brother kind of already. My brother and my parents kind of already have a look into what the dance world was at that point,
right.
and serve as this kind of like point of reference and this kind of like guide into what the dance world was at that particular moment in time. I think what I appreciated and what I appreciate most about my dad and his way of training me was that he always believed in me. At no point did he doubt that I had the capabilities to do what I said I wanted to do. Even though initially I remember facing a little bit of resistance from the dance community, particularly in Mexico, because my brother had been so successful at such a young age, and he was this kind of like amazing talent that everyone was like, wow, this kid is incredible. That I think there was a bit of hesitancy as to whether I could also do it. So the feeling that I got even at that age was that, and I've spoken to my dad about this now, many years later. And yeah, many teachers, many of the people that were in the dance community were like, do you really want to do this to your kid? You already have a brother that he already has a brother that is successful, that is very good. It's going to be very hard for this kid to kind of live up to those expectations and those kinds of things. But I don't think that my dad ever imposed any of those expectations on me. I think he understood that I wanted to do it because I genuinely loved it, and I genuinely wanted to see it through. And I was slightly like a chubbier, and I had like I was a kid. It's like it's just things like that that at that point in the dance world it was like, oh well, like you might not fit the certain parameters of like what an ideal dance body is supposed to be or was supposed to be at that point. So there was a bit of resistance, but my dad always encouraged me and always believed that none of that mattered. That as long as I was pursuing it with passion, with love, and with determination, and I was willing to put in the work, that I'd be able to succeed.
Right. You mentioned that your dad said in this, legendary initial speech setting you up for your career that he had kind of already mentioned that moving away might be something that is necessary eventually. Around what age did you start to explore the idea of training abroad, and how did that come about?
Well, when I started, when I was 7, my brother was 11. And so we kind of overlapped at home for about a year. and then he received a scholarship to study at the rock school. And so when he left, every time he would come back, and every time that I would see him, there was this like huge difference in, I think like new teachers, new environments, especially healthy ones, tend to have that effect on people where like they feel like you can just grow into that space. And I remember being able to recognize that in my brother, and wanting the same for myself, or wanting to be able to have those same opportunities to grow and to grow and to kind of evolve. So I think when he left, I knew that like I wanted to kind of do the same at some point, because as much as my dad was able to offer me at that point in time, I think he also understood that it was not going to be a forever thing. He could offer me what he could offer me given the circumstances and given his knowledge and his approach and all of those things. But he also understood that for me to continue growing, I needed to go. I needed to explore different possibilities.
I wonder about, so for parents who are looking to have their child leave home and go to a ballet school, they do a lot of research, and probably the research for most parents is like safety and those sorts of things, which of course the rock school has a lot of that, like they have a great dormitory experience. But I would think also that your dad would be very interested in the dance training in particular that you two would have gotten there. Did he do any sort of like research into that, or did he kind of just like when Isaac came back and looked better and better, he's like, oh, he's in the right place? I'm just curious about that.
Well, because at that point, I remember when my brother got the offer to study at the rock school, he also got an offer to study pretty much everywhere, most of the major ballet schools, and the difference was that at the rock school, the directors, Bo and Stephanie, they understood that we were children. And we were children being asked to leave our families behind and move to a different country and be in a completely different environment at such a young age. 12 years old is you're just a kid.
Literally, yeah.
And so they understood that, and they spoke to my parents about that, and my parents' concerns for our safety and for our development, and for us to have some kind of connection with our family even far away. So Bo and Stephanie offered to allow my oldest sister, to move to Philadelphia with my brother, so that she could act as his guardian, and so that he could feel like there was a part of his family, a part of his home with him. And at the time, my sister was not thrilled at all, because she was about, I think she was 19, 20 years old, and she had a life in Mexico, and all of these different things and expectations there, that to her it seemed kind of like uprooting her life and moving to a different country to take care of a kid. It was a lot to ask of her, of course, but I think like now talking to her about it, she was like, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. And I think it was also the best thing that could have happened at that point for my brother, to have someone from our family there with us to take care of us. So I think that was the main deciding factor, that they seemed to understand that rather than just worrying about the dance training, you also needed to take into consideration the human side of things. The fact that we were kids.
You're still kids, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, you were not shy about taking other leaps of faith. You trained at the Royal Ballet School. You trained at the Pagana Academy at one point. So
the rock school, right?
And
yeah, the rock school. Yeah.
So what gave you at such a young age, this to me, it seems like a fearlessness. You're just willing to, for the sake of your training, because you're so in love with ballet, just go dive into these situations that could be pretty daunting for any child or teenager.
Well, I mean, I think there was still. It's not that I was fearless, because thinking back at like so many of those experiences, like I'm now able to recognize that I was afraid at many points, but I think when you're a teenager, you're not always entirely aware of what you're feeling and how things are impacting you and why you're feeling the way that you're feeling at those times. But I think for me, what I always knew was that I was willing to do whatever it took in order for me to be able to not necessarily be successful, because for me it's never been about the success aspect of it, but I think I wanted to feel like a certain amount of like fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to feel that I was really doing what I wanted to do, what I loved to do, and it not necessarily at the expense of everything, because I think it's unreasonable to sacrifice absolutely everything for one thing. As much as I'm passionate about it, I also understand that that there is more to life than just dance, than just ballet. So, but I think, yeah, I think I always felt like encouraged and supported, and I think that was the most important aspect for me, to feel that it was okay for me to not succeed, but knowing that if I didn't, if anything happened, that I could count on my family, and I could count on my friends, and I could count on my teachers for support.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about your training. How did you start what was your first foray into the professional world of ballet?
Yeah. So when I graduated from the Royal Ballet School, I got an offer to come dance here at the San Francisco Ballet. And I immediately accepted it, because I had, my brother had danced here at a certain point, and I had come to visit him and spend some time here. And I knew some of the dancers and the staff, because I had been allowed to take classes with the company a few times. And I always liked, I liked the environment. I liked that it seemed like a very close community. So when I got the offer to come join the company, I didn't even think about it. I just I agreed. I mean, I think, well, maybe that's not entirely accurate, because I did study at the Royal Ballet School. So whenever you spend that amount of time in like an institution, right, especially something like the Royal Ballet School, and the way that the curriculum and the training is there, it kind of makes you feel like the Royal Ballet is the only place that you should aspire to.
We know about these things with yeah, the dance schools. Yeah.
Yeah. And
did you not get in there? Because we like to talk about this too, like kind of some disappointments that happen along the way that then lead you to the right place for you. So that, I'm guessing, didn't work out then. And was that like a big disappointment for you, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I remember like my last year at the school, I wanted to dance in the UK. That was kind of like what I had been kind of prepared to do. Right. It was the Royal Ballet, the English National Ballet, or Birmingham Royal Ballet. Right. Those were like the main three dance companies there, and none of those worked out for me. and I remember like at the time feeling like a little bit upset, a little bit disappointed. But I was like, you know what, that's okay. I think like I can start somewhere else, and then maybe down the line I'll get an opportunity to come back at some point,
Right.
or something like that. So so yeah, my intention was, I've been at the San Francisco Ballet for 8 years now.
Yeah.
And I don't think that at that point when I first moved here, I expected to be here for as
Sure.
long as I have been. And I am extremely thankful that I did not get into those companies, not for any other reason, but just the simple fact that I got to experience a whole different set of experiences, and
Right.
got to dance completely different things that maybe I wouldn't have gotten to dance over there. I've gotten to work with some amazing people, choreographers, my colleagues, my coworkers. I feel like the San Francisco Ballet at that point was kind of like the end, close to the end of like a generation.
Right.
So I got to be there for kind of like the changing of guard,
Sure.
where all of these like superstars that I had always admired, I still got to dance with them, and I got to learn from them, and I got to be on stage with them. But then at a certain point, they retired, they left, and it kind of all of a sudden it started to become my responsibility and the responsibility of the people that had entered the company at the same time as me. It was our responsibility now to kind of fill in those gaps and kind of become those people that we once had admired.
Right. Yeah. This might be a tiny bit off subject, but I'm wondering if your father met your present day director, Helgi Tomasson, as they both danced at Harkness. Did they know each other before?
I think they because I've spoken to my dad about this, and I think they crossed paths, but not necessarily. I think they were there at different times.
Right.
But
it
yeah,
is kind of a
I
funny
always,
little,
connection there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like at that point in time, Harkness was the place to be. So many amazing dancers trained there and passed through there. So yeah.
Yeah. So what were some of your first opportunities then that came at your time in San Francisco Ballet?
So my first year in the company, for the opening night gala, our opening night gala, Johan Coburg came to set Le Lutin, which is like a piece for three dancers, two men and one woman, and it's really fun. He created it, I think, on Stephen McRae and Sergei Polunin and Alina Kojokaru, I believe, were the originals. And this piece was meant to be danced by Gennady Nedvigin and Joan Boada. And Joan got injured right before, like a week before the opening night, and I had been in the studio because I think Johan sort of knew of me because of the Royal Ballet School connection, and I'd seen him dance many times and all those different things. So I was in the studio learning it, like understudying it along with another friend of mine, Max. But I happened to be learning Joan's part. So a week before the gala, they were like, okay, well, Joan's not going to be able to make it, so you're on. I remember being like, oh, okay, cool. All right. I mean, I think like for me, I came with like this desire to just do everything and as much as I could, and I felt very capable and all of these different things. But it's such a different thing to think that you can, and then to actually have to do it and be there and have to deal with all of the different pressures and expectations and challenges that come with being at the front and being like performing a principal or soloist role. So I think that was my first experience of like, oh, am I actually going to be able to do this, or do I just think that I can? So there's like a certain amount of doubt.
Yeah. So you'd had tons of performing experience before this point, and some dancers don't always get that luxury. So was your mindset when you first started to get these opportunities? Were you like, oh, I've got this, performing is totally in my wheelhouse, like I'm good? Or was there still those like butterflies and nerves that we all get?
I mean, I think up until this point, I still have those things, because like I said, I think particularly since becoming a principal dancer and now getting the chances to do things that like I've always wanted to do, and things that I've always thought that I'd be able to do, but then now actually being faced with them and getting a chance to do them, it's a very humbling experience, because in a way it allows me to realize that I have a very long way to go still. Because I think like people tend to think that the end goal is to kind of become a principal dancer, and once you become a principal dancer, everything just magically kind of like fits into place. And I've found that becoming a principal dancer kind of creates this platform for you to then develop yourself further through the things that you are now going to get to dance and going to get to explore and going to get to perform. So yeah, I mean, I remember like having some moments. My first year, I also I got thrown into Alexei Radmansky's From Foreign Lands, which is a piece that was made for mostly principals. And I remember the ballet starts in a circle in silence, where you're all facing each other and you're kind of like dancing in silence. And I remember being on stage and the curtain going up and me looking around at the people that I was standing next to. I mean, like, what am I doing here? like, should I really be out here? Because I remember feeling like the presence of all of the dancers around me. I mean, I think I had like Sophia and Sylve across from me. I had Luke Ingham, also principal. I think I had Gennady next to me, Francis Chung, all superstars of the company. And I was just a kid. I think I was 19. And even though I had plenty of opportunities to dance and plenty of stage experience, it's a completely different experience doing it professionally and doing these pieces from these choreographers and dancing with these experienced dancers. So yeah, I definitely had a lot of humbling experiences like that, where I was like, whoa, like that's what being a professional dancer is being able to be in these situations and face them and kind of like rise to the occasion.
Right. Yeah. So as we were saying, you've been performing your whole life, and then last year kind of, threw everything off the rails for everyone. What were some ways that you still were able to find an artistic outlet since theaters were closed?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we were in the middle of, we had just opened Midsummer Night's Dream, Balanchine's Midsummer Night's Dream. And I think for the opening night, I was playing Puck, and then the next performance that we were supposed to do, I was supposed to play Oberon. We at the end of the first show that we did, we all gathered on stage and we were told that the run was canceled, that everything was shutting down, but that we would try to gather the next week or in a couple of days to try to film a version with a different cast. So I ended up still getting to play Oberon for the recording that we did, which was really cool. But I think like none of us really thought that it was going to be this like years long situation. We were all assuming that we'll be back in a couple of months, probably like for the end of our season we'll get to do Romeo and Juliet, just like it'll be okay.
Right.
So immediately I kept training. Like I built a ballet bar in my apartment, in my living room, and my friend and also dancer at the San Francisco Ballet, Diego Cruz, he put together what became worldwide ballet classes, which became this like amazing space for dancers from all over the world to kind of like connect and continue training and getting these amazing classes.
During this time, whenever I opened my Venmo up, you know how it says like who people are paying? It was always a worldwide ballet class.
Worldwide
I was like, everyone is taking this class.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing that I think it was something that like people needed at that particular point in time, to feel like you were still in this together. And I think in a way the pandemic did, at least at the time, it seemed like it brought the dance community closer, because we all had to rally together and be like, okay, well, we can't do what we usually do, but what else can we do in order to maintain this sense of community and find something for us to continue feeling fulfilled. So I kept dancing, and then Diego asked if I'd be willing to teach once in a while. I had taught a couple of times at the Rock Summer program, and also for my parents' students back in Mexico. So I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll give it a go. And it actually became this amazing other outlet for me. It challenged me in different ways to kind of come up with classes for like limited spaces and classes that like anybody would be able to do anywhere. So it was really fun, and it was a really great way to connect with some of my classmates from the Royal Ballet School, some of my classmates from the Rock School. Nice. They would all show up to take my classes, and then eventually some of my teachers from the Royal Ballet School, one in particular, Melis Pakri, he was my first year teacher. He was invited to teach at Worldwide Ballet class. So it became this like amazing thing, this amazing community where all of his former classmates, all of his former students and people from different generations would show up, and we would all be dancing in our homes, but also together. And to be able to have that was a really special thing. So for me, it helped to feel like I remember being somewhat excited at the beginning of the pandemic, because I was like, this is an opportunity like nothing else. I mean, it is a terrible situation, but also if you look at it in a positive way, we're now having time to do things that we would normally not have the time to do. Yeah. So what am I going to do with this time? How am I going to use it to feel like I'm not just passing time and like this year is just for nothing. Like I wanted to feel like I was still moving forward, even though we were not able to continue moving forward. And in a way, it was good for my mental health to have some kind of structured. I started doing yoga also, which was amazing because it felt like such a. I had always thought about it and considered it, and many people had recommended it to me, but I'd never really taken the time to explore it. Yeah, so I started at the very beginning. Yeah, it's amazing, and it's such a great complement for dance because it's like strengthening, but it's also you use your flexibility a lot, and it actually changed the way that my body feels and that my body moves and it works.
See, Michael, I keep telling you.
she showed me, actually. We've been doing yoga.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think I just tried to find as many outlets as I could. We were doing some projects with the ballet to kind of maintain some kind of presence. I think it was necessary to show that we were not just giving up, that we were still pushing forward. At some point, I recreated a whole solo by Yuri Posokov in my apartment.
Wow.
I filmed it, and it was edited it together, and it was it ended up like just being a good way for me to learn about different things.
Right.
And then eventually we started filming things for our digital season.
Right.
Once things started to open up and we were able to come back into the studios in some capacity, I also continued teaching in person for the San Francisco Ballet, which was also really, really cool and a really amazing experience to be able to share that with the people that I work with. It ended up turning into a more full-time thing than I expected it to at that time.
Is this for the company or for the school?
For the company. So because we were split up in small
Into
groups
pods,
at first.
right.
Yeah, I first started teaching my pod of 6, and then as we were allowed to move into larger pods, I started teaching more people, and I mean there were some weeks where I was teaching every single day for a group of 35, 45
Wow.
dancers in the company. So it became this like, okay, like now I feel like I have a new skill, and I have developed this skill to a point where like I can see myself maybe doing this in some capacity in the future.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been really cool.
So luckily for all of us, the San Francisco Ballet is making it back on stage very soon. So you'll be performing at Stanford University on the 13th and 14th of August this month. It's a beautiful amphitheater. It's outside. Can you tell us a little bit about what the program is going to be and what you will be dancing yourself?
I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be my first live performance in front of like a big audience. So it's really cool. I mean, it's amazing that after last year, we're finally making it back on stage as a company and as a group. It's a big program. I believe the company is doing Serenade. As well as Helgi's 5th season, and then there's like a smaller kind of like a gala section of the performance, and in that I'm going to be doing Tarantella. Yeah.
You're talking about Balanchine's Tarantella, I presume.
Yes, Balanchine's
which is
Tarantella.
Very what we call puffy. You know, it's a hard thing to get through. So I mean, it sounds like you've been casting things like this from the get-go, these sort of like stamina busting, virtuoso things. Right. But after, basically a year and a half off stage, do you have to prepare any differently? Do you feel like you had to treat your body a little differently to get your stamina back up to that level?
Well, curiously, I feel like I'm in a better place physically than I was before having a break.
It's the yoga. We keep hearing that from dancers, though. Currently, we're at Vail Dance Festival. It's wrapping up soon, but a lot of dancers have been telling us that like the cross train they've been doing, they actually feel like really great, and all the dancers look great. So that totally makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a combination of that and also rest. I think like since my schedule has not been as intense as it normally is, I feel like I've been able to find a kind of balance between like working and pushing and really like training hard, but also having time to recover. Whereas like the way our season works, it's very condensed. We go from program to program to program to program to program over the course of 5 months. So at some points of that, you feel like your body is extremely exhausted, and so sometimes like it's difficult to like, of course you feel strong and you feel like you're in great shape and all of that, but you don't always have the enough time to recover.
Right.
So I think for me that has played a big part in kind of this whole process, that we've been able to continue working, mostly like rehearsing and learning reps that we're going to be performing later on. But in those rehearsals and in learning all of that, like pushing myself as if I was getting ready to perform it tomorrow, but also having the time to rest and recover has made a huge difference. So yeah, I don't know. I first learned Tarantella, I think like 5 years ago, from Elise Bourne, which I felt really lucky to learn it from at that time. May she rest in peace. But it was a really fun experience to learn it from her. And I remember at the time having such a hard time with it and feeling like, how can anyone truly have fun when this is like so difficult and so tiring, so exhausting? And I think the more that I've done it, I've learned to not necessarily pace myself, but I think I have a better understanding of my body and what I need to do and how much I need to push and how much I don't need to push and where I can rest. I think like that's been one of the greatest lessons of like my professional career.
Right.
I think like when I first started, I tend to put maximum effort in everything at all times. And now I'm like, oh, I think it makes for a well-rounded dancer when you can see someone that rather than being 100% like all the time, it's a bit overwhelming to find these kinds of like ups and downs and different layers to what dance can be. So now this time around, I'm working with Sandra Jennings.
We love Sandy.
Yeah, she's amazing. I worked with her on Midsummer Night's Dream, and that was an amazing experience.
Yeah, she staged Midsummer for us at Miami City Ballet.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. And I had Sandy at San Francisco Ballet School when I was 15.
No way.
We
awesome.
love Sandy. Everyone goes way back with Sandy.
Yeah. She's really lovely, and I love like all of the knowledge that she has like stored, and all the different stories that she has about when she danced at New York City Ballet, and when she learned like the ballets from Balanchine and from all of the different people that she worked with. It's been really fun, and so it's been really fun to work on Tarantella, because Tarantella kind of like everybody does a slightly different version of it.
Sure.
And I think the more that you do it, you kind of find your own version. But it's been fun because we've been going back to the originals, and we've been looking at all of these videos, and we have she's shown me footage from like Eddie Villela to Helgi to Misha to all sorts of different people doing it, and we've been kind of taking bits and pieces from everywhere, but also being extremely specific about how it should be done, and the kind of like the intention behind all of it, which may not seem like there's too much in something like Tarantella, because you just feel like it's just dance for the sake of dance,
right?
But I think she shared a video with me and my partner. I'm dancing with Sasha de Sola.
We love Sasha.
Yeah, Sasha's great. And of Eddie Villela coaching it at Miami City Ballet.
They're friends.
Yeah.
I thought it was Sarah.
Alex.
Alex Wong. And Alex Wong.
Yeah, Alex Wong. And he's talking about how it's like these are two flirtatious young people who are coming into this town square to entertain and to show people like a good time. And then he talks about how the Tarantella comes from the idea of when people would get bitten by tarantulas, that in order to kind of shake the venom off, you had to dance frantically. And that's where the concept of like the Tarantella comes from. Anyway, it's interesting to hear all of these little things, because I think like they add different layers to the dance, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever performed at Stanford before?
No, I believe it's been several decades since a ballet performed at Stanford.
Wow.
So yeah,
it's new. I mean, I love, they have such an incredible program coming up, but of course it makes the most sense to start with San Francisco Ballet, and with such a great, a really well-balanced program. I love, you've got the Balanchine in there, and like you mentioned, it's like that tradition is passed down through people who either originated the roles or people who work directly with Balanchine. And then you have things like Helgi's own work. So it's a program that really says like who San Francisco Ballet is, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we just hope you have the best time ever out there, coming back after a year and a half. And I mean, what better thing to come back to than Tarantella? As hard as it is, it's just like a smile for the body and the audience. And we wish that we could see you in it ourselves.
Yeah, I know. I'm really looking forward to it. I think like there's always a certain amount of like I think since it's been so long, there's a certain amount of like anxiety involved. Like, do I remember how to do this? But I mean, I think it was the same with like so many of the things that we recorded for our digital season. Like Emeralds, we actually got to be on our stage without an audience, but we actually got to be back on our stage, and it was this kind of feeling like, oh God, like, am I going to remember how to do this? Is it going to be, how is it going to be? So I'm curious to see how it feels after such a long time. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Well, we love San Francisco Ballet, and we love the energy of the company, and we're sure the energy will be off the charts this weekend in Stanford. And so audiences are in for a treat, and we hope that whoever's in the area will take their time out and go check it out, get back to live dance outside safely. So thank you so much for your time. It was so great chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. It's been really fun.